So, hello everyone, and welcome to um, another. Well, welcome to Monday, folks. Um, welcome to another day of Indy month. So today is Monday, the eve before time trials tomorrow. Um, Tomorrow afternoon. Um, so, um, so I'm just going to explain time trials a little bit, and hopefully you guys will get the gist of how time trials in Indy work, because they're quite interesting. Even though they might be quite boring. Everybody's like, "Oh, the car's going in a circle, ha ha ha, ha ha ha." The car's going in a circle for 240 miles an hour, and we don't care. It's boring. But there's a lot of more. But it looks easy. It's anything but easy. Um, so, um, I thought I would talk about. Usually during Indie Week, I pick a topic. Um, by the way, if you guys know how I was talking about Bump Day. Well, it seems that Indianapolis Motor Speedway and Indianapolis being Indianapolis and IndyCar being IndyCar and Roger Penske being Roger Penske, he decided to change the qualifying format a little bit. I suggest you guys go to David Lynn's video or the internet to. You guys can look up 2026 Indy 500, 110th running IndyCar qualifying. It's because there's no bump day, so they have to heighten the drama just a little bit. So, and stuff like that. I think they want everybody to show their A game and stuff like that. So everybody wants a decent start position, even though we all know, because it's 500 miles and 200 laps and the cars are on the edge and anything can happen. It's not guaranteed. I think it was like 3 years ago. I was watching the Indy 500. I think it was the 23 edition, and I remember watching like 4 red flags happen. If you guys go back to my 23, you guys go back to my 23 edition of the Indy 500, me showing Newgarden winning for the first time. It's like when I'm doing this across the screen, I'm like, oh, when I'm doing this across the screen, my arm's rooting for Roger Penske to win, even though this year I don't want him to win, and I want somebody else to win. And hopefully that's somebody else. Or Helio Castroneves sneaks up to the field and gets number 5. So it's been done where Indy competitors have won 2 races in a row. Allenzer's one of them to do it. Joseph Newgarden is also another. So yeah, there's a few other guys that have won back to back, but so you guys will look up Indy qualifying and how it is, because they want to drum up the drama. This is Indy being Indy. Indy is the greatest spectacle in racing, so we have to make it so dramatic. We have to make it Hollywood levels of drama to make it so amazing when all the drama happens. Well, this is for pole / qualifying. So I guess on Saturday everybody's qualifying. All 33 cars qualify, and then that time is disallowed. And then I guess they looked at the times and then your order set, and then there's a group of cars that will qualify first, and then there's a group of cars that will qualify based on what you qualified the day before, not Fast Friday, but the day before on Saturday the 16th. Friday the 15th Fast Friday does not mean anything. It's just the guys getting used to the car's top boost and how they use the push to pass and the hybrid system and all that stuff. So that's Fast Friday. That's different. So Fast Friday, it's all different. And plus they're in traffic. They get draft. They get passed. So top speeds will be higher. This is them running in a shootout style, running shootout style one at a time, and obviously they want to do this for TV ratings, and obviously they don't want to stay on the air too long, and they kind of know how this is going to work. Weather pending, so we don't know. So hopefully the weather plays out this week in Indianapolis. Hopefully we don't get rain during any of the days of practice. So, because usually it's like 2 weeks of practice, and then eventually like a week or two before the 500, they all qualify, and it's usually over 2-3 days. They just want to do this in 2 days. They just want to do this qualifying in 2 days, because you've already had Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. So if you have 4 days of practice, and plus they'll have practice runs of the day of qualifying, so that you can get used to your race setup and stuff like that, and test out with the boost on, obviously. And then obviously after that they will do final practice on Friday, and then Saturday there'll be the parade, big bunch of things, and then Sunday, obviously the 24th, will be the Indy 500. But yeah, look up. But yeah, you guys can go to Indy.com to see those rule changes, and stuff like that. So the topic I was going to talk about today was unique rules and unique rules at the 500. So one thing that has the one thing that's different today. So one unique rule that's different. I mean, each era has had their own set of unique rules and their own set of unique regulations. Like in the early 1900s, right, 1911, when the first race was run, over 100 years ago, 100 plus years ago, minus the war, obviously, because we couldn't run during the war because we were trying to get, because it's something about saving fuel and rationing stuff, because we were trying to fight some pretty nasty people. Pretty sure that was World War II. But each set of eras has had its own set of little rules. So one rule from, I'll tell you guys some unique rules from different eras. So one unique rule, a couple unique rules. So from like 1911 on, the cars were not single seaters. They were actually Grand Prix cars, because some F1, because believe it or not, Grand Prix racing actually used the F1 World Championship actually used the Indy 500, but I'll get to that in a moment. You guys will be stunned to know a quick fact that there's actually been a few IndyCar or Champ Car drivers. That's what they called them back then. Champion race cars. Champion race cars. Champ Car. That's where the term Champ Car comes from. Champ Car. The guys from Champion Auto Racing teams, Kart, Roger Penske, and all those guys who wielded gazillions of dollars and were and sledgehammered their way into the month of May and the record books and all that other stuff. Champ Car was started way back in like the early 1900s. Sorry, Team Penske. Sorry, Chip Ganassi. Sorry, Dan Gurney and all the other people. Champ cars were started in like the early 1900s. So the engine sizes for the sweepstakes, because they did it via raffle back in those days. I think they did that for about a decade or so, and then they got rid of it because I think somebody got the bright idea that maybe the guy should qualify and see how fast they can go and push the limits of the automobile. So the highest cubic inch engine was, I believe, 600 cubic inches. 600 cubic inches. Remember, turbocharging did not exist, so that was here nor there. Supercharging did not exist. The only place where supercharging really existed was planes. Somebody in the comment section might be able to tell me more, but yes, there were like 3, 4, 6, and 8 cylinder engines with like 600. There was like 4 6-cylinder engines with like anywhere between 5 to 600 cubic inches. So a Dodge Viper motor, sized 4-cylinder. Yes, you heard me correctly. There were 4 cylinders. There were 4-cylinder engines that had there were 4 cylinders that were as big as a V10 out of a Dodge Viper. So, the other thing is, in those early days, is they were 2-seaters. You actually could have a ride on mechanic. So just in case something happened out on the course, you didn't have to limp back to the pits. You could actually just pull off to the side, and the mechanic, probably had a small little toolbox, could actually assess the car, get it back, and enough to get it back to the pits where they could actually work on it. And this was back in the time when the whole speedway was a bunch of bricks, and leaf spring suspension sucked, and they basically had bike tires for wheels. So you can only imagine if you broke a CV joint, or whatever they called it back then, or if you broke a suspension, which was leaf spring suspension, which was very, or whatever they did, the leaf spring, the one that if you don't tension it right, it pogos. It's like boing, 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 that sort of thing. Like they do in the old timey movies before sound came along. The jalopies that are going with the camera you go like this, up and down, that sort of thing. This is before lowriders, by the way. This is way before lowriders. So if you had broken suspension or spindles or setups, that's how you would get the pogo going. So this is way before lowriders came out in like the 70s and 80s. So to all those with Impalas or big wheeled Cadillacs and Lincolns, people in 1911, people in the early 1900s started it first. So, and I think in the 30s, I think that was around the time supercharging. So you had stuff. Oh yeah, by the way, back in like the 1920s, you had the Blitz and Benz, which it had this beak-like nose and stuff like that, and the thing had like a massive engine. I think it was like 400 something cubic inches, and it could go over 100 miles an hour. As scary as it may seem, that was back in 1925. You imagine going, and this is still on cobbled bricks, and this is on bricks, by the way, with little bike tires that are about this big. You can only imagine doing 100 plus in one of those. Yeah, these guys had don't know how they fit to quote Jennifer Cara. I don't know how these guys fit in these cars, because they must have had stones. They must have stones the size of stone. They must have had stones, for those of you who are in the know for slang. they must have had stones the size of boulders because at that speed back in 1925 or 1929, and this is before the whole Grand Prix thing that Hitler did in the 1930s. So, the 1930s, well, what can I say about the 1930s? It was basically ho hum. The 40s, well, there wasn't really much of a race because I think there was a war going on. But I think it was in the 50s that, well, I think by like the 30s, I think by like the mid to late 30s, I think the cars became single seaters. There was no ride on mechanic because most of the guys running them were mechanics or they knew how to fix them and they could actually get them to the pits in time. And tire technology was also getting a little bit better, but not super great. This is also when tires were about had this much circumference, not the big, not tires as big as my torso, of course, but big as my torso, of course. I mean, some of the tires on an Indy car, are pretty big now. So because they have to be in order to take all that acceleration, grip at high speeds, and do 240 something in the corners. But okay. I think this is also when supercharging also started to come along, and supercharging or used to come along. I think Bobby Unser came along in a Novi, and the car had like 400 or 500 horsepower, and this was around the time when the cars were really starting to go. This was post-war, so people learned engine technology from the Germans and stuff like that, and they learned that smaller engines, lower RPMs, could create more power, more torque. I also think they also did a diesel. They did a diesel car. I believe Cummins did a diesel at this in the late 40s, early 40s. I think they started racing back in Indy, I think at 46 or 47. So I know there was a diesel in there because I know they tried racing. So I know that Delatraz brothers tried to do it at Le Mans back in like the 40s and the 50s. So to no avail. Audi kind of got that one in 2006, but it wasn't the first. The Audi R10 was not the first diesel to actually compete in the race. It was a Caterpillar diesel, I think. That it was a special Cummins diesel, I think. That one that Delatraz had. One of those ones. So, in the 60s, obviously brought along the stock block rules. So the little guy. This is back before. This is before the stock block rules of like the late 70s, early 80s. This was in the 90s, and we got a certain Mercedes pushrod engine that was sort of questionable by a certain Mr. Penske, but this is kind of when the stock block rules, so you could show up to either with a turbocharged Offenhauser or something, or a V8, or you could come up with a 5.8 liter, 5.6 or a 5.8 liter stock block. So basically a small block Chevrolet or a Ford or something like that. Dan Gurney did it in his Eagles in the mid to early to mid 60s, and then obviously the high revving V8 from Ford and Lotus came around, and that ended up being the basis for what the DFX would be back in the 80s. So it's kind of some early fun facts about. I'll come up with more for each era. I'll have to look it up. I'll do it later. Do the segment later in the week. I just wanted to kind of just get this one out, but I will see you guys later. This is about 12:01, so I'm gonna upload this. You guys are gonna have this for tomorrow. Obviously this is a Monday video, but it's gonna be published on a Tuesday. So hello everybody. So hello, goodbye, good morning, good evening, good night. I'm going to go to sleep. Hope you guys enjoyed this. Bye bye.